Hey there, AP Human Geography students. Welcome to another lecture for our ethnicity chapter. In this lecture, I'm going to be talking about the causes of ethnic conflict. We're going to look at a couple reasons why ethnic conflicts can plague a country, starting with the distinction between ethnicities and nationalities and how multiple nationalities within a country can cause division and possibly conflict. We'll look at how the division of one ethnic group into two or more countries can result in conflict as those groups seek reunification and or self-rule or face discrimination as ethnic minorities within a new country against some ethnic majority. And finally, we'll look at how the presence of a multitude of ethnicities within a single country or region can lead to a kind of balkanization effect, where the country is unable to form a single national identity out of those multiple ethnicities. And due to discrimination or competition for violence, this country can break down into conflict or outright war. Ethnicity doesn't always correspond to nationality. Japan, Iceland, Portugal, Korea, and more are good examples of nation states, right? States where the borders of the ethnic group and the borders of the state are closely lined up. Because of that, it's very likely that the citizens of those states share both a common ethnicity and a common nationality. But in most states, however, that's not the case, and the distinction between ethnic groups and nationalities can be a very contentious one. In the United States, citizens have a shared nationality created by many different ethnicities' belief in a set of guiding civic principles like democracy, elections, freedoms and liberties, the Constitution, etc. Sometimes this is referred to as a civic nationality as opposed to an ethnic nationality. While the US does have its share of ethnic tensions and conflict, there's not much threat of a competing nationality emerging within our borders. Canada, however, deals with the question of the Quebecois, the French-speaking Catholic inhabitants of Quebec, as a nationality or an ethnicity. Which are they? The Quebecois have a distinct cultural tradition and language, Catholicism and the French language. They were a former French colony as opposed to a British colony like the rest of Canada. The problem here for Canada with recognizing or naming the Quebecois as a distinct nationality is that a distinct nationality would give much more weight to arguments for self-rule in Quebec and potential independence from the rest of Canada, which is a real possibility and threat. In 1995, Quebec held a referendum, or a vote of the citizens, to determine if they should declare national sovereignty and their independence from Canada. The no vote won with a very slim margin, with a 50.58% win. Canada, or the Quebecois, decided to remain Canadian, even with one of the largest voter turnouts in Quebec, in Quebec's history at 93%. A similar issue exists in the United Kingdom, as we've mentioned a little bit before as well. Does the United Kingdom consist of one nationality or several? The English, Welsh, Scots, and Irish all have distinct histories and culture. The Welsh and the Irish even have distinct languages. Ireland, Wales, and Scotland all have a history of fighting for independence from English rule in their past. The resistance towards officially recognizing Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland as distinct nationalities is the same reason for the resistance in doing so in Quebec. Distinct nationality gives more weight to arguments for self-rule and independence in places like Scotland and Wales. Scotland currently enjoys a great deal of autonomy and local rule from the central government of the UK, and that's in large part because the UK has already granted separate local governments, kind of similar to the state governments in the United States, to Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, where Scotland's has sort of the most local authority. Scotland as well held a referendum for independence in 2014, where the no vote won also with a pretty slim margin of 55% to 45%, and Scotland remained a part of the United Kingdom. They're scheduled to vote again at the early part of 2021, so we'll have a chance to sort of see this, I think, within this school year, whether they decide to do it again or not. Although there's, various economic reasons and things like that why they might still decide not to. So the idea here is that competing nationalities can be a threat to the sort of integrity and survival of countries as we know them, and at worst, a source of, sort of a threat to the survival of countries as we know them at worst, and at best, a source of internal disputes and conflicts between friends. Next, we can talk about the issue of dividing or divided ethnicities. The division of countries along certain ethnic lines is another source of ethnic conflict that can take several forms. One source of conflict between divided ethnicities can be through those that seek reunification between a group that's been divided across borders and or those that seek self-rule for one distinct ethnic group from another. Another source of conflict can arise when one ethnic group faces discrimination as ethnic minorities against an ethnic majority. Let's look at some examples of each of these. Starting in India, or South Asia, prior to 1947, India was part of the British Empire. Following World War II, though, many European countries, kind of at the request of their colonies, moved to grant independence to their colonies in Asia and in Africa. In a lot of cases, this independence came very quickly, particularly in India. Independence in India soon led to a British partition of South Asia into Pakistan and India by 1947. This was done because the Muslim minority of India worried that they would lose any kind of political power as a minority in India to the Hindu majority. Some argued, or many argued, to keep India united as one country or one nation. Partition or division, though, was the final decision. Although it was still controversial, the agreement was a swift one, and before long, India was independent and divided into a Hindu majority India and a Muslim majority East and West Pakistan. What followed partition was a mass migration of many Hindus to India and Muslims to West and East Pakistan. East Pakistan is now the country of Bangladesh. Approximately 17 million people decided they were on the wrong side of the boundary at the time of partition and felt that a migration was necessary. Either, Hindus crossing from Pakistan into India, or Muslims leaving from India into Pakistan, or the same situation between India and Bangladesh. In the migrations that followed, over 1 million people were killed in the clashes between migrants and extremist groups on both sides. India and Pakistan fought several wars following this division, and hostility remains high between the two countries, a problem made even worse by the fact that they are both nuclear powers as well. But at its core here, there is an ethnic conflict that has resulted from the division of this country along ethnic lines into two distinct nationalities that now are very wary of each other. And if you're able to click on that link, you can get sort of a more detailed account of the history of partition in India. One of the problem areas that resulted from the partition and remains to this day is along the northern border between India and Pakistan in a region known as Kashmir. The two countries disagree on where this northern border should be and have maintained a militarized line of control since 1972 with a military presence on both sides. Although this is not considered an official border. Kashmir is the Indian section in the south and Jammu is the Pakistani section in the north. But Muslims make up a majority in both sections and have fought for their reunification into one spot, either as part of Pakistan or as an independent country altogether. India does not want to lose the territory or the people. While Pakistan is willing to allow a vote for independence, though, because they believe the people of Kashmir and Jammu will vote to leave India and reunite, either as a part of Pakistan or as a fellow Muslim country against their rival India. This disputed territory has been noted by former President Bill Clinton as one of the most dangerous places in the modern world due to its potential to spark another war between India and Pakistan, one that could turn into a nuclear conflict based around this ethnic territorial dispute. The Kurds are another example in Southwest Asia, this time of an ethnicity divided among many states, seeking self-determination or self-rule. Many ethnic Kurds identify as a Kurdish nationality, yet there is no Kurdish country. This makes the Kurds a stateless nation. Following World War I, certain treaties, such as the Treaty of Sèvres from 1920, promised to create a Kurdistan out of the defeated Ottoman Empire. But treaties that followed ended up giving more land to the new country of Turkey and failed to create a Kurdistan or Kurdish state. Pursuing Turkish nationalism and a greater unity, and to destroy what they saw or see as a centrifugal force, Turkey suppresses Kurdish culture within the borders of Turkey. The Kurdish language was illegal, for example, in Turkey up until 1991, and it remains banned in many parts as a language of broadcasts and for use in the classroom. The Kurds have waged a guerrilla war in Turkey since 1984, and this guerrilla war has been waged by a variety of Kurdish groups against Turkey, following all manner of political paths, but many of them seeking an independent Kurdish state. Several full-scale rebellions have also been attempted since the 1930s, all of them resulting in defeat for the Kurds. A failed rebellion against Saddam Hussein, for example, in Iraq, led to Saddam's use of nerve gas and chemical weapons against the Kurds, killing thousands. Following the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq, however, the Kurds acted once again as allies to the USA in their fight against first the Iraqi army and then against Al-Qaeda and ISIS. During that time, the Kurds mostly governed northern Iraq as an independent area, and to this day retain a great deal of autonomy in modern-day Iraq, although still they are not an independent country, just a very independent province within northern Iraq. And then finally, we'll look at the third major cause for conflicts between ethnic groups, the prevalence of ethnic diversity. Simply having an abundance of ethnic groups stuffed into a region or country can be a recipe for conflict. Minority groups will compete for dominance within and between countries, and ethnic minorities also face discrimination by ethnic majorities or unsympathetic governments. In Southwest Asia, or Western Asia as it might be referred to, there is a complex mosaic of different ethnic groups, sometimes identified by differences in religion, as well as other cultural factors. Like the Kurds in Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran, the Middle East is filled with a variety of ethnic groups that fall into one of the two categories of either seeking some form of sovereignty or local dominance within a country, or being on the receiving end of discrimination from other groups and wanting a solution to that. In Lebanon, for example, ethnic groups are closely tied to the various religions of the country. Lebanon has traditions of allowing certain groups to hold certain positions in government. The president, for example, was typically a Maronite Christian. The premier, or sort of prime minister, a Sunni Muslim. The speaker from the Chamber of Deputies, a Shia Muslim, and the foreign minister was typically Greek Orthodox Christian. The 1932 Constitution in Lebanon declared that congressional representation should match the percentages for ethnic groups from the 1932 census, that each ethnic group should be represented in the parliament or Congress based on that ethnic group's percentage in the 1932 census. These traditions, though, and restrictions were not enough to stop a civil war between the various groups that ended up lasting for decades between 1975 and 1990, I think. 1990. And which destroyed much, sorry, I lost my place on my notes there, and which destroyed much of what was once considered the sort of Paris of the Middle East in the city of Beirut, and led to many refugees fleeing to other countries for safety. The civil war has ended, but Lebanon remains ethnically tense and poor following the civil war, and to this day no census has been conducted since 1932. In Syria, a minority ethnic or religious group known as the Alawi or Alawites ruled over a Sunni majority with other minority groups as well. For the last 10 years, a civil war has raged in Syria, displacing millions of civilians and killing hundreds of thousands of others as supporters and opponents of the Alawi government fight each other. The Alawi government of Syria seems to be winning the civil war in recent years as this conflict enters into its 10th year. In both of these cases, the presence of multiple nationalities and ethnic groups has led to a kind of balkanization, with countries breaking down into outright war due to the presence and conflicting interests of multiple ethnic groups, unable to form a single national identity. This concludes this lecture of the causes of ethnic conflicts. I hope it helps you, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks a lot.